Hey everyone, Chris Sawyer is here and the Varietal Show is back. We are at an amazing winery right now, Casa Madero, and we're talking about the oldest winery in the Americas. We're talking about 1597, it being founded here in Mexico. This is my amazing friend Sergio González, and one of my most charming gentlemen in the wine business, in my opinion, and one of the greatest speakers for Mexican wine in the world.
Oh, wow.
It's, you know, when I get to come here and judge this competition that we just did, which is México Selection by Concours Mondial de Bruxelles, it's an amazing thing. This is my second year being here, and we are in a different area than anyone really kind of knows. This is kind of an area where a lot of people have never been here in Mexico. So tell us a little bit about where we're at. You're Mexico City boy, so how far is it from Mexico City to come here in Paris?
Well, thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure always to talk to you, Chris. And well, we're pretty far up north. We're at the borderland with Texas,
Yep.
and we are as far north as we can get. So it's easily an 18-hour drive all the way from Mexico City. It's a 2.5-hour flight from Mexico City to Torreon, which is the capital city of this state, which is called Coahuila.
Coahuila. And the little town of Parras, and it's not to be mistaken with spelling with Paris, France. It's Parras and de la Fuente. It's an amazing little city. It's really not over 50,000 people, but I mean, you would think that there's so many joyous people running around there. And it's a real trick to how it became successful and why this winery was built here in the late 1890s, and why it came to be is water. This is a great source of water in the middle of the desert where not many sources like this, and this winery started, and then the town was kind of founded after the winery.
Exactly. It's actually a pretty rather interesting story because right after the conquistadors departed from Mexico or the capital back then, Tenochtitlan, the Aztec Empire, they started after they conquered the Aztecs, they started heading on their way north in search of gold.
Yeah.
So right after Zacatecas and other states from central Mexico, they kind of had to decide like whether they should go east or west. So they kind of parted ways, and part of the expeditions went to former or actual Baja California, and the rest of them came to this side of the country, which is the northeastern part of the country, in search of gold. They didn't strike gold, but what they found was a pretty good water source, and a very interesting fact that the main finding was wild vines.
Yeah.
So you got the chance to meet a 350-year-old vine.
Yep.
And that's pretty much what they found. So they found a lot of water and a lot of wild vines.
Yep.
So they started making.
We were taking our pictures in front of a 350-year-old vine just the other day. So we've been judging these wines, and here at Casa Madero, this is like the kind of the cap for the latest chapter of this amazing competition that we did. You did an amazing seminar for us that first day, and I really want to compliment you in
Thank you,
just being this, it was a master class in Mexican wine and basically the history of the wine in the region. This is a very special region here, and from what I found over the past few days, and being with you and your great and the great people were around. There's a lot of locals here. We were with the mayor quite a bit of this town, and we're going to have dinner here tonight again. But we also got to visit some of the modern wineries. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit right here. This is Don Leo, one of the great wineries we got to go visit. This is very modern. And this is a Cabernet Shiraz blend from 2020, which I fell in love with the other day. And this is another one called Parvada, and this is a Selection, kind of more of almost a Spanish style, aged kind of where they really kind of go through the Grand Reserva style. This is really unique. I mean, we've got the oldest known winery in Americas. That means North America and South America. This is the oldest one of them all that still is in existence. This is Vitis vinifera, was the first planted here. That's the grape that Cabernet and all these are in the same category of species. And here we have the modern age and what's really happening here. What would you say? I mean, something that you taught me a lot about, and we've discussed quite a bit. Brandy was big. Tell us a little bit about how this, once the Spanish said we don't really want to compete with you, we would advise you to just not make wine anymore. And then brandy kind of came about in the modern age, but then it started going away. And then how did this all happen where wine started becoming cool again?
Well, long story short, they founded this valley, Valle de Parras, Parras de la Fuente, Coahuila, in the state of Coahuila, in 1597. So right after the founding of this Casa Madero winery, things started developing towards the production of wine, and then we got an instruction from the Spanish crown to rip all the vineyard in Mexico, because quality-wise it started to compete with Spanish wines, so they didn't want any competition. So they said, let's get rid of those wines and start our new export program with Mexico and the whole Americas that they were discovering. So then after they ripped all those vines, basically the wine came to a stall point. And after that Mexico started looking towards brandy and other spirits, so the consumption of brandy went up, and pretty much it stayed like that for a couple centuries. And then things started to, as you mentioned, become hip again. And that's when Parvada, Don Leo, and all these new wineries that are pretty recent, like
Parvada is just like a few years, maybe 3 years. We had dinner there last night. It was fantastic.
Awesome winery.
It's just amazing too, because one of the things that really kind of hurt the wine industry, the brandy industry, was just the success of beer. And soccer, and Mexican soccer was big, and what were you going to drink there was beer. And so it really did hurt it, but Casa Madero was one of those wineries that made that shift. We were with Rafa, the great winemaker and vineyard guru. He was on my team this time, and so I got to be with him. He was big in the 80s, here in the 90s, and really got to make some of the shift happen here at the oldest winery of them all. We were just out there in the vineyards just a little while ago, looking at the new plantings, and the oldest vines here on the plant, they're planted 35 years old. That's it. Because guess what was here? All the grapes that used to make brandy was dominant. But the ownership, they were just saying, we're doing a lot of Cabernet, a lot of Malbec, but also some really unique new plantings of Grenache that you might be looking for in the future. But I mean, this is an exciting time for this region, don't you think?
Absolutely. I came here with a single vision that I was going to rediscover the best wines in Mexico, because Baja is currently producing 70% of our national production. But then we have these other states like Querétaro and Coahuila that are really up and coming. So right after Baja, your second place when it comes to production is Coahuila, and then Querétaro. So I really wanted to revisit this area and kind of intimately meet these new projects, because they are producing amazing wines, very fruit forward, forward driven wines, but with a lot of soul, a lot of different styles. And something that's very interesting for me is that it's the only area in Mexico that actually produces quality Pinot Noir. So
that's true. And we feel that we were tasting Pinot Noir the other day, and I know that one of them got a really great award. And going past our palates and knowing that there were some American wines here too, and you never know whose is whose when you put them in this mix. This is the first year that they really did a great mix like that. So it was very interesting,
Exactly.
And since we're on the topic of just this competition, it's not just wine that we were tasting, we were also tasting spirits. Tell everyone, you were on the spirits team.
I was in the spirit commission.
So tell everyone a little bit about what you got out of that.
Well, it's an amazing experience. This is my first time tasting spirits for the México Selection concours. And before that, I used to do it for wine. But then getting into the whole spirits category, it's just mind-blowing, because we're producing not only tequila and mezcal, but also bacanora, raicilla, and a very, very interesting spirit that is called sotol. So if you haven't tried sotol, look for it, and it's really gonna blow your minds, because it's very unique. It's produced high in the Sierra, so it's a very piney like pine needles, resins, forest aromas, very different from our other national spirits. So similar in production to mezcal, that where you have your pit oven and it's double distilled, just like mezcal. The process is very similar, but the interesting part of it is that the plant is not an agave.
No.
So it's something else.
And it's got these
called
very kind of spiky kind of little parts that go up like this.
Like needles, right?
Yeah, they look like needles. Like you don't want to land on it. Let's just put it that way.
It kind of resembles what do you call it? Uni?
Yeah, uni.
Like sea urchin?
Yeah,
it looks like
exactly.
a sea urchin, like a giant sea urchin.
That's a good comparison.
So it's a sphere full of needles, and just like you said, they're very fine, prickly. You don't want to touch them.
But you see them all around here, so that's why it's such an interesting region, and it's a specialty kind of beverage, that you have here, is that spirit.
I really believe that's going to be the spirit that takes over the market. I know tequila is pretty big, but the consumption when it comes to, if you compare mezcal consumption and tequila consumption, even though tequila is so big worldwide, it's starting to decrease a bit, and that's because of the mezcal hype that has gone up. And I know this is something you're very familiar with in the States, but it's also very popular in Germany, in the Netherlands, and also in the UK. So I'm positive, I'm certain that this is the spirit that's going to be taking over connoisseur palates. So if you're into tequila, if you're into mezcal, do try Sotol, and it's going to blow your mind away. We also tried other spirits from different origins, so not just mezcal and tequila and Sotol, but also raicilla, bacanora, comiteco, and also very interesting vermouths.
Yeah.
So pretty much a little bit of everything.
It's an amazing thing. When you come to Mexico, I think we think about, get a margarita, get a beer, everything. There's so much more going on here, you guys. That's the whole point of this, is that what I'm going to bring back, and what the other people like Dr. Liz Tosh and Mike and Jeff, the great world wine guys, and us all learned here, was some really interesting lessons about these regions, and especially this one is really special right now, and it's coming up really fast. I mean, these wineries they're not screwing around, and we also got to go to RG, which is a great one. We want to say a word about RG.
This is a project that really blows my mind, because something that you got to understand is that something that you found in 1597, it's starting to make their way up, quality-wise and all. But they have a very traditional way of thinking. And RGNY, it's based in New York, and RGMX is based here in Coahuila. So they want to do like different projects that has to do with the area and the vines that are produced in this area. So RGNY is the very first brand that I do believe really understand where the market is going. So they're doing all the things that you guys are doing in Sonoma. They're canning wine. They are going towards natural and organic, and they have very, very unique products. We even try a couple of seltzers that are made with local fruit, local peaches, and local pomegranates that are produced in
making wine in amphoras.
Amphora wine.
Some really interesting things, and probably the one thing we have not talked about at all yet, why this region is very well known, and why you know this region even though you don't think you do, is pecans. Pecans, this is one of the main places in all of Mexico where pecans come from. And that winery, actually, that's kind of really part of their thing is pecans. They're very big.
Yeah, Chihuahua and Coahuila are the largest producers for pecan nuts in Mexico, and they export almost 80% of their production to the United States. So I'm sure you have tried them, even though, like Chris mentioned, you haven't realized.
Yeah. So all lovers of pecan pie out there, guess what? You need to come here and visit, because these pecan trees are not like I'd say like almonds or walnuts. They are huge. They are really, really tall, and they are so amazing to look down those rows. But once again, you have to have water, and that is the one thing, is the secret here, is the water of this region. And so it's just a wonderful thing to be here, don't you think?
Just it's like I said, mind blowing. And on our way, when we were strolling in the vineyard, you saw how much water there is actually in this place. It really comes down the mountain, and even though you're in a semi-desert area and very, very warm weather, in the winter it can get really cold. So it can drop to 7 degrees below zero. So it can really get cold, but then all that ice melts from the mountains, and they have plenty of water. So they do a lot of great things, not just with vines and pecans, but also olives, figs, and all sorts of...
figs. Oh my God, you guys, amazing. So there's so many things here. We got to go eat in a minute, but I want to thank you once again for all you do for us. And Sergio, you represent this country so well. I'm so glad to be here with you once again for Concours Mondial de Bruxelles and this amazing Mexico Selection. This is something that's very special. This is the 6th year. I've been here for 2 years of it, And hey, listen, I live in Sonoma County. Sonoma County is awesome. Napa Valley is awesome. Willamette Valley in Oregon is awesome. Paso Robles is awesome. Mexico is awesome. And when we get to taste more of their wines like we have been doing, you'll understand, wow, they have some serious things happening in Mexico. And it goes way beyond tequila, mezcal, and beer. There is a lot of stuff going on here, and I hope you guys really learned a little bit about this, and we'll try these Mexican wines when they start being imported into the United States more often. And when you're down here, that's the greatest thing ever. Go to these wine shops, check this stuff out, and enjoy them like we are enjoying them.
It's a fairly short drive from San Antonio, so if you can make it, fly over San Antonio and then rent a car, drive down here, you're going to be really surprised. And just like Chris mentioned, you really got to scratch the surface to get to the good stuff, right? Because you just mentioned, we're not only known for tequila and beer, but there's a lot of quality products that are available. So if you guys have any questions, just give us a
shout holler, and definitely look
Instagram.
up the Concours Mondial. The website is the Mexico Selection by CMB, and you'll find that, and you'll find our results coming up very soon about the big winners. And the other thing I would say too, just for tourism, there's a lot of history of dinosaurs here too that are really awesome, and a lot of these wineries have things about dinosaurs. This one in particular has a leg of a massive dinosaur that is actually dated back to 74 million years. And we just saw it just a few minutes ago. And I mean, it's like, those are real feet.
Gigantic.
It's gigantic, and it's wonderful. This is a wonderful place. How we got in here was through Monterey. We flew into Monterey, drove up here. It takes about 3 hours. But I can't wait for my next trip.
This whole area is top 10 worldwide for paleontology, so if you're into it, this is definitely an area you want to visit. That's just one of the other things that are around. And just ask him, give him an Instagram message or do it straight to me, and we will be glad to recommend you wineries, different wines, and all the rest of the good stuff that is around here.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for tuning in once again to the Varietal Show, and let's thank the owners of Casa Madero for just presenting us with an amazing closing night dinner, but giving you and I a few minutes to just talk about how great of a time we had here and what we learned from it. Hope you guys learned a lot too. Cheers.
We really appreciate that. The Milmo family is always around. They are running a winery like nobody is, so I'm sure you're going to enjoy coming and visiting.
Cheers.
Cheers.